Hello there, my fellow boomers, old farts, and over 55 crowd. I'm Doug, and you're listening to Dying to Retire, a show about retiring on your own terms from a guy who is actually doing it. Think of this show as those late nights sitting around the fire pit, a cigar in hand, a beer or two, no wives or girlfriends around to hear it, just no shit conversation and a little friendly judgment between guys who have earned the right to talk some shit. If you know, you know. Let's get started. Apologies for not dropping an episode last week, or could have been the past 2 weeks. I have been knee deep here in the house in Maryland, trying to get our basement back into some type of organized order. I had to move all the furniture around in order to first prep the basement floor and then paint the basement floor because the dust was killing us. And it took a while and a hell of a lot of paint to get it where it is now, but it is getting better. Now, I want to say the plumbers did a decent job on the pipes. It's working really well. But their concrete laying skills is not so great. If they had just grabbed a float and probably about a 3-4 foot long 2x4 in order to level things out, they didn't do that. And if they'd done that correctly, in my opinion, it would have saved me about 3 days of work. It would have saved my back and it would have saved my knees because I was going around etching and using a little 5-inch orbital sander to take care of a lot of stuff. That said, let us start today with an update on Casa Douglas. And I say Casa Douglas because everyone down there calls me Douglas. It's a house we're having built just outside of Antigua, Guatemala. The construction part of the project is almost done, pretty much done. Now, the realtor and the deal, the way a contract is set up here, is the one putting in the appliances. We still need to look at them, but then she's going to pick them up, buy them, and have them installed. The builder didn't want her to do that until after they were done their stuff in there, which means I'm going to be heading down there in a few weeks, right? And going to take video, take photos, talk about it in podcast here, but I also will throw up the videos and the photos and talk about it there on my YouTube channel too. Now, you guys heard me talking about using a designer to help with the initial furnishing, my little cheat that I'm doing. And I will admit, I'm a bit of a nerd, like a lot of people. I even created a document, a booklet, PDF, turned it into a PDF, with every room broken down by priority, by what furniture I need, to include the TVs, with example photos of what each item should look like. Like, this is the type of couch I'm looking for. This is the type of swivel recliner I'm looking for. This is the type of dining room set I'm looking for. Doesn't have to be new, it can be slightly used, because there's a lot of people who do very well and change their furniture down there, just like you do here. And I did that. And I basically laid it out in 4 phases or stages, right? That's how it's labeled in the book. Because at the end, I have it broken down like a checklist. But basically, P1, what I call P1, is this is move-in ready. This is the non-negotiables: sleep, cook, wash, sit, shit, eat, the basics, right? Then I have P2, which is the nest in area, right? This is for the 1 to 3 months after move-in, focusing on the daily comfort, some electronics. P3 is making it home, make it home, right? 3 to 6 months in, I plan to have the secondary outdoor spaces done, furnished. Not a lot, just simple things in there, because on the master bedroom, there's a private balcony with a great view of Volcan Fuego. So we can have dinner out there, we can have breakfast out there, we can just sit out there, read a book. So those are things we want to do in there. And we have a terrace that everyone can access that has a beautiful view of Volcan Agua, which is the non-active volcano. When visitors come in, they can sit up there. So when my guests come, they can enjoy it. P4 is basically the finishing touches, the 6 to 9 month mark for the nice to have stuff, the wish list stuff. And it's all budget allowed, what's budget will handle. Because I do have an operating budget. And while the designer is doing okay so far, I have to watch out for scope creep because she is a designer. And she wants to do these accent walls, ceiling molding, and expensive paintings. First, I'm a dude. I couldn't give a rat's ass about accent walls. Casa Douglas is a classic Antigua style home. I like it exactly how it is. No need to waste money on fancy molding. No need to waste on accent painting. Because to me, putting a good ceiling fan in the living room and the bedrooms is more important. But it's coming along. And I will be soon back down there. They even fixed the water fountain in the back courtyard to have a lion's head where the water comes out and the mosaic tile my wife wanted around it. So I'm happy there. 6 months from now, it will be great. However, getting to the 6 months will be a little hectic, and that's on me. And that reminds me of an episode of the My Latin Life podcast called Shipping Your Life to Latin America: Containers, Cost, Smart Moves with Pablo Arias of IRP, in which the host interviewed a gentleman named Pablo Arias, who is a manager and a moving expert of International Relocation Partners. One of the things that Pablo Arias said during the interview that has stuck to me to this day was his advice of do not try to do everything all at once. Now I'm talking about trying to decorate the whole house, go get a car, do all the other stuff, all of it right out of the gate. Got to get it done, got to get it done. Because when you move to a new country, you need to have realistic timelines and expectations. And this advice is not just for people getting relocated abroad for work. It applies just as much to retirees, new expats, and even digital nomads. It took years to set up the home you're moving away from. It will take time to set up your new home. He noted that based on his experiences and observations, because he gets paid either way, be you coming or going, people who did not follow this bit of advice often moved back home in less than a year. It was just too much stress, too much self-induced stress. So what he had there is good advice to live by. Moving on to other things, but keeping it about Guatemala. I was recently lurking in the Guatemalan expats group on Facebook, and I saw people losing their minds, basically losing their shit, because the Lake Atitlán area got hit with a State Department travel advisory, a travel warning. People were jumping on there, blaming the State Department, calling them idiots, which is valid in some cases. And one or two got on there and just blamed it's all Marco Rubio's fault. Like he personally sat down, had a meeting with his staff, and determined, yes, they're going to fuck with this or that person's expat life or vacation in Guatemala. Yeah, Bob Smith, we wanted, or John Doe, whatever you want to call yourself. Yeah, they wanted to go after you. No, they don't even know who you are. And let's be blunt. These people are projecting their own political grievances in a Facebook group that is not supposed to be political onto a process that's been running longer before Rubio was even a thought to be the Secretary of State, and long before most people commenting on that were even a twinkle in their daddy's eyes. And let's be honest, at the moment of their conception, their daddy was probably looking for a blowjob and not trying to actually start a family, especially with them. And that is another reason why I lurk on these groups and try my best not to comment, because there's good information being shared there. However, a lot of members are very liberal and have very subjective memories or very subjective interpretations of history. But let's look what actually happened in Santiago Atitlán. In early July 2026, the event that members on the Facebook got all pissy about. Let's talk about that. This was not some random unrest, right? The townspeople were trying to get the mayor, one Francisco Coche, out of office since last September 2025. He had pissed off a lot of people by licensing a bunch of new tuk-tuk taxis around town, basically adding more competition and reducing the cost for the tourists and the people who would use it, because we all know the tuk-tuk game in all tourist areas is just a racket. Now, thousands of people signed on to get rid of him. The local council said the job was vacant, done, over. Then the Guatemalan Supreme Court stepped in, overruled the whole thing, and reinstated him. And here's the funny thing. And here's, talk about being third world, because America is going that way. The court probably called this one right, the Guatemalan court. There was no recall election. There was no official policy, procedure followed. They just signed a petition, we want him out. The council just got up and declared his job was vacant on their own say-so. So when you dig into it, this is almost looks less like corruption on the mayor's part, but all politicians are corrupt, and more like on the council. And maybe some of those existing tuk-tuk businesses facing new competition, wanting him gone for their own reasons, right? Because it's going to cost them money. So when he actually showed up in person on July 1st to take the job back, the town lost its shit. And that's what triggered the riots. The protesters didn't just yell and scream and do all that stuff. They set fire to a local museum. They trapped the mayor and his staff. 5 people were shot during all this chaos, and one of them later died from the injuries. The National Civil Police had a specialized anti riot forces, just they had to use them just to get him out because he was hurt and needed medical care. That's not a political opinion. That's not Mark Rubio trying to fuck with your vacation. It was a riot. Now, would they have gone after Americans in the area? Maybe, maybe not. Now, this brings on to another thing. So let's talk about the State Department for a second and how, as much as I want to pick on them, and I can, trust me, I really can, they actually have a job to do. When they slap a travel advisory on a country or an area within a country, it's not just some bureaucrat throwing darts on a map. They run it through what they call the 9 risk indicators: crime, terrorism, civil unrest, that type of thing. And there's a whole committee designed to analyze these things before anything gets decided. You got people at the embassy on the ground, it's the whole apparatus. It is a process, not a guess. Now, is the State Department risk averse? Big fucking time. And here's why. They're the ones who have to deal with it when some tourist gets jammed up or worse, killed. That call falls on them, not you, because you're likely already dead, right? And now they have to work with the host government. On top of it, something like an American getting hurt or killed can mess the relationship between US and that country. You got to think big picture, not just your vacation, not just your digital nomad life, your slow travel or your expat life living abroad. And for I do not trust the government crowd, fine, don't trust them. But do not be an idiot either. There is no good reason to be in an area when they're burning museums down and assaulting government officials. So unless you are a photojournalist capturing a war zone, you're just a freaking rubbernecker. You're running towards a fire because you want to see the shit show. And then you're going to be the first one screaming for the embassy to come rescue your ass when things go south. If you are listening to this, you need to know the drill. Get off the X. Whether you are a tourist, an expat, or a digital nomad, it does not matter. The State Department, when it comes to international travel for Americans, while not always your friend, they are not your enemy. They're just the ones telling you where the fire is or was. And if you're too stupid to listen, don't blame the guys who are holding the warning signs when you later get hurt or worse. And look, if you want to understand Get Off the X concept in more depth, go check out my episode on YouTube. I'm the producer, the editor, the graphic designer. It is just me, so the graphics are pretty basic. Nothing is super flashy. There's no fancy special effects. But you will get the point. And the concept is something you need to learn if you're going to be traveling anywhere. It's useful, it's real world, and it just might save your ass one day. Go watch it. Now, I have a question for the men out there, you guys out there. Have you ever had people or a person, and by people or a person, I mean women, just jump to conclusions without even wanting to hear the whole story, the rest of the story? Well, I got one for you. I recently posted a video short about hiring a maid in Guatemala. It was a companion video short to a longer episode, about a 15-minute episode I did on the subject. Simple video, not political, just me talking about getting some help around the house once we are settled in. In short, it was to get a maid or not get a maid. That is the question. And it doesn't matter if you were a single man, married, or just becoming an expat living abroad. Now, I get hit by comments from a handful of different women saying the same version of the same thing, that I'm not doing anything around the house. I'm just another good for nothing lazy man or husband, that I'm not listening to my wife and to her needs, that hiring help, getting a maid is really about me as a man wanting to replace the wife, and so on and so on and so on. It was a handful of women, not one, not two, a handful. And when you see the same accusation that many times from different women, you start to realize you're not dealing with a simple misunderstanding. You're dealing with a feminist boss bitch script. They're not actually watching your video. They're not actually thinking about what I said. Nope. You are dealing with a preconceived notion in their skulls that they had before they even hit play. One of them kept coming back, said I was filming in front of my bookshelf to make myself look smart. Like I needed people to know I had books and that I knew how to read. Now, think about that for a second. That's not a comment about hiring a maid. That has nothing to do with that. That comment was about me, a personal comment about me. as a man. And what she had decided for herself that I was trying to prove. Now, here's the problem with that one. Half of those books on the bookshelf in the video were actually my wife's, not mine. The funny part is, we had a shitload of books before we actually downsized getting ready for this Guatemalan process. And we've been doing it for the past year or so. Like I said, we had a lot more books than what you saw in the video shot. She didn't know that, but she couldn't have known that. She just saw a bookshelf behind a man talking about hiring a maid, and she decided it meant something about me being a fraud. That's not an observation, that's a projection on her part. Now, let me tell you where this actually is weird and where it got me a little pissed off because apparently I need to explain myself a little bit. When I was in the Corps in the 1980s, and if you know anything about the Corps, you know, no matter what MOS we are cross trained to be cleaners who have to clean to the gold or the white glove standard. Every Thursday was spent doing a deep cleaning of not only our rooms, the bathrooms. If you had one, if it's shared, you got that duty too, but the rest of the barracks as well, the day rooms, the laundry rooms, hell, even the closet where you stored the mop and the buffers and the cleaning supplies. It was Thursday night field days. That's where I learned how to really deep clean, and that has never left me. Then on Friday mornings, when they inspected your room and the rest of the barracks, they didn't fuck around. As I said, it was often white gloved. If the senior enlisted, usually a master guns, found dust, found anything, then you did it again and again until you got it right. You didn't go out. Your Friday night was fucked. Each inspection after the first only got worse and more invasive. It was a colonoscopy before we were old enough for colonoscopies. And that thing kind of sticks with you for the rest of your life. So here's what actually happens in my house today, now that I'm retired. I do most of the vacuuming and dusting, but some of it, most of it. I'm not bragging about myself. It's just because I have the time to do it because my wife is working from home. It's just a fact that I do it. And it's been that way for a while now. And here's the part that really gets me. Because it shows you these people were not even trying to get the facts right beforehand. They just wanted to bitch and moan. I'm doing a split retirement. I'm going to be in Guatemala first, and my wife will stay here in Maryland, well, longer because she is not yet retired. She's got a few more years, and she will not be down with me as I set up the house and hire the maid. She will start coming down once it's all set up. And in all honesty, she does not have the patience for things like that. She prefers it to be more move-in ready. So when she finally retires, when she joins me for good, it will be, 80, 90% set up, ready for her. So when that maid gets hired, who do you think's doing it? I'm the one that's going to be doing it. I am the one going to be paying her. I'm the one that's going to be scheduling her hours, not my wife, like the lady accused me. Me. My wife is not even going to be in the country yet. So when this all gets set up, again, I said that in the video. So the whole theory that I'm somehow dumping labor onto my wife, making her manage another the cleaning woman's schedule on top of her own job, falls apart the second you know the actual setup. It was never true. It was all in this woman's mind. And it's just easier for these feminists to assume the worst. Now, I am not a misogynist, and I want to be clear about that because I know exactly what's coming in the comments the moment I say what I'm about to say. I do believe in traditional gender roles, and I'm not going to apologize for it. I'm not going to soften it to make it more palatable. I think there is real value in a household where roles are understood, where people are not fighting over who does what, where you're not renegotiating the terms of your marriage every single week. That is my view. You can disagree with it, that's fine, but do not tell me I'm not doing anything around the house when I'm the one scrubbing the fucking baseboards. Now, here's the thing I really want to leave you with. You cannot make a majority of modern women happy these days, especially if the women have grown up in feminism. I mean that. I'm 60 plus years old. I've watched this exact pattern play out over and over. A man does something normal, something practical, something that any reasonable person would call a good decision, and somehow it gets twisted into evidence that he is controlling, lazy, performative, whatever the word of the month is. And that mindset, one where the man doing normal things in his own house gets read as some type of control play, And that is exactly why you have the thing called passport bros nowadays. That is exactly why you have men checking out of the dating and checking out of marriage altogether. This is exactly why you have gray divorces. Guys in their 50s and 60s, when the wife comes in and goes, "You're not doing enough, I want a divorce." And they're like, "Okay, I'm good with it." Men got tired of being wrong no matter what they do. And honestly, I do not blame them one bit. And to wrap up today's episode, I want to talk about the difference here in America. Recently, a fellow Montgomery County resident on X brought up how the taxpayers in both the county and the state are getting hammered, and the taxes and fees are getting crazier by the day. And this got me thinking about cash based economies in the United States, in America, and more importantly, the cash based economy that's happening here in Maryland that a lot of people don't talk about. Several months ago, my wife and her niece and cousins went out to have dinner. It was a girls' night out. I was home. I forget what I was doing, right? They went to a local restaurant around here called Guapos. Most people know it. It's a Mexican Spanish restaurant. And my wife said it was filled to the rim with Latino people and they were having a great time, which is fantastic. But when she got back home, we were talking, she told me about it. And she did not understand how these people at the restaurant were flush with cash and were partying. They were paying for everything in cash, and she didn't see a lot of plastic being thrown around when the bills came due. My wife and I try to limit how often we go out. Let's be honest, we don't cook at home as much as we should. That will change when I'm in Guatemala and for her, she's back here, waiting to retire. So I started thinking about it. Now, why am I bringing this up? Well, the other day I was listening to the Expat podcast, and the host, Johnny Mueller, was talking about countries that have a large percentage of the population making money via the cash based economy, versus what we see here in the majority of the United States. Several of the countries he mentioned were from Latin America, where a large portion of the people do not pay taxes on the money they earn because they're earning it under the table. And it's not just earnings where the taxes are being collected. Yes, money is exchanging hands all day, but there is a difference between buying something from a store in a mall and buying something from a local mercados. So when you go to the real store, like a big chain, yeah, you're paying taxes. You have to do it right there. You get the receipt, you see the taxes on it. But when you're buying goods and services normally, let's say at a place like a local market where you get your fruits, food, and a fresh driveway chicken, you are likely not paying taxes or the taxes are not being paid that go to the state. Those sales taxes are not being reported. That cash based economy has been imported here largely by the illegal community in Maryland and the whole United States, too. They're not paying taxes because they're getting paid in cash. So there's no payroll taxes. And think about jobs that used to be entry level, high school or college students doing summer work. Those jobs are pretty much gone. Why? Because the illegal community working those jobs are doing it for cash and doing it for less. And here's a perfect example. And this one's actually kind of ingenious. So respect goes out to this lady and other ladies who are doing this, right? And it's a Spanish lady. At one of the laundromats down the street from our house, there is an older lady who, when you go there to do your laundry, she will offer her services. And what I mean by that, she'll do each basket for like 10 to 20 bucks, depending on how big the basket is. She'll do the clothes. She'll wash them. She'll make sure they get dried. She folds them and she irons them if they need to be ironed, right? So that's why the pricing goes from 10 to 20 bucks. She's there for 8 hours, usually 5 to 7 days a week. She's probably clearing $200 to $400 a day. That's $1,600 to $2,500 a week. Give it $24,000 a year, untaxed. And then at the same time, Maryland likely gives them, because they have all these groups, NGOs, and grants, and then Maryland just pays for everything. That's why our taxes are going up. Gives them money for food, housing, and everything else, medical, think about rent and everything, the whole thing, right? And I'm not saying these people aren't working their asses off. I'm not saying it isn't super creative because I actually think we're taxed way too much, especially in Maryland. But these people aren't really paying taxes. It's the person who's hiring them that's paying taxes. So here's the reality of the game we're playing, right? And this is from a post by Pasquinelli on YouTube, not YouTube, on Twitter or X now. And he may not be the originator of it, but this is really good. And it's titled Meet Joe Legal versus Jose Illegal. Joe Legal works in construction, has a social security number, makes what, $25 per hour with taxes deducted. Jose Illegal works in construction as well, has no social security number, and makes $15 per hour. It's all cash under the table. Joe Legal's $25 per hour, 40 hours a week. That's $1,000 per week or $52,000 per year. Now, take away 31% for state and federal taxes. Joe Legal now has what? $31,231. Jose Illegal, $15 an hour, 40 hours weekly is $600 per week or $31,200 per year. But Jose Illegal pays no taxes. Jose Illegal now has $31,200 still. Joe Legal pays medical and dental insurance with limited coverage for his family at $600 per month or $7,200 a year. Joe Legal now has only $24,000 and some change. On the other hand, Jose Illegal has full medical and dental coverage through the state and local clinics and emergency hospitals at the cost of what, $0 per year. Jose Illegal still has $31,200. Joe Legal makes too much money and is not eligible for food stamps or welfare. Joe Legal spends $500 per month for food or $6,000 per year. Joe Legal now has $18,000 in change. Jose Illegal has no documented income and is eligible for food stamps, WIC, and welfare, whatever the state is giving. Jose Illegal still has $31,200. Joe Legal pays rent of $1,200 per month or $14,400 per year. Joe Legal now has $9,631. Jose Illegal receives $500 per month through rent subsidies. Jose Illegal pays out $500 per month or $6,000 per year. Jose Illegal still has $31,200. Joe Legal pays $200 a month or $2,400 per year for car insurance. Some of that is uninsured motorist insurance. Joe Legal now has $7,231. Jose Illegal, I don't need no stinking insurance, still has over $31,000. Joe Legal has to make his $7,231 stretch to pay utilities, gasoline, and etc. Jose Illegal has to make his $31,200 stretch to pay utilities, gasoline, and what he sends home every month in remisas. Joe Legal now works overtime on Saturdays, gets a part-time job after work. Jose Illegal has nights and weekends off to enjoy with his family, aka the Guapos. Joe Legal's and Jose's Illegal's children both attend the same elementary school. Joe Legal pays for his children's lunches, while Jose Illegal's children get a government-sponsored lunch. Jose's Illegal's children also has after-school ESL programs. Joe Legal's children just go home. Now, when they reach college age, Joe Legal's kids may not get into the state school, may not qualify for scholarships, grants, or other tuition help, even though Joe has been paying for the state schools through his taxes for a long time. While Jose Legal's kids get to go to the head of the class because they are a minority. Joe Legal and Jose Legal both benefit from the same police and fire services, but Joe paid for them. Jose did not. Do you get it now? If we vote for the support of any politician that supports illegal aliens, we are part of the problem. Now that's the game right there. Joe pays in, Jose cashes out. And the people running this whole thing know exactly what they're doing. This is not by accident. This is a choice politicians are making, and we're the ones footing the bill for all of it. Same as that lady in the laundromat. Same as Guapos being flush with cash on a Tuesday night. I just find it interesting that the cash-based society in the United States is thriving, which is mostly run by illegals, while regular Americans are not doing well. They're getting taxpayer money, and that is why people are frustrated. They do not hate the individuals. Some do, but they hate the game. And they hate the game because the government looks at its own citizens and pisses and shits on them. then gives the illegals everything they want. And it does not stop at the border either. Who we let feed off the system at home is the same problem who we prop up overseas. And for a side note, for all you people who think I'm crazy, I do not care, but I am a little crazy. I think the United States needs a better relationship with Central and Latin America. We need to stop the expansion of socialism and communism that's partnering itself with Islam. Socialists and communists always think they can control it, but they never can. Islam, radicalism, politicalism, however you want to call it, will use you and then get rid of you the second you're no longer useful to them. We need to have relationships with countries like El Salvador under Bukele or Argentina under Milei and other countries that are slowly heading to be more conservative than what the United States is. The majority of Latin American countries have strong Christian roots and are more aligned with America than those from Islamic nations, which it seems like we're just bringing people in time after time after time. That is a national security issue. So shoot me if you want, but that's the truth, at least in my optics. And don't get me started on India. That's it for this week's episode of Dying to Retire. If you have a question or comment on this episode or any other, send me an email at dyingtoretiredpodcast@gmail.com. Hopefully this saves you a retirement or expat headache or two. As always, I'm Doug. This is Dying to Retire, and I'll see you in the next episode.